Hi everyone, welcome to StudioJake. So sorry there is no video today. I'm having a little bit of camera issues. So I decided just to give you this audio episode. So we're going to be talking about a couple of things today, but the big two topics are going to be, I'm going to talk about Avengers Endgame, and I'm going to talk about why does DC Comics hate Wally West? So sit back, relax, and welcome to StudioJake. Alright, so first of all, I want to talk about Avengers Endgame. Now, don't worry, there will be no spoilers in this conversation. I just wanted to address something and talk about the movie just a little bit because I went and saw it before the weekend. I got to go to a Thursday showing, and one of the things was I was originally going to go to a really nice fancy theater where you get assigned seat numbers and you get all the stuff, but I had to actually return my tickets to that because the time just wasn't perfect. It was not a it was not I was supposed to go to a 7 o'clock, but I thought, oh man, that's way too late because I had work the next morning. So I refunded that ticket and went to a smaller, less popular theater, and it was barely crowded. It's kind of a smaller one in the LA area. It's not very well known, but they still had tickets available, and I was able to get in, and it wasn't really that crowded. Now, my understanding was, I found out later, the 8 o'clock showing was really crowded that day, but the 6 o'clock that I went to was not at all. So I just wanted to talk about Avengers Endgame and just give some insight into how I thought the movie was good and whatnot, because it was what we call a modern classic. So, and it all started with Iron Man, but you know, the fact is the MCU didn't really come to fruition until Marvel's The Avengers, which of course was directed by Joss Whedon. You know, Joss Whedon in his politics may be radically left-wing, and his personal attitude, sometimes I feel like he is a little bit of a jerk, but he's actually a really good filmmaker, and so the Avengers all came together really well. I know that I'm in the minority, but I loved Age of Ultron. It's ranked pretty high in my Marvel Cinematic Universe Infinity Saga films ranked list on my blog. But anyway, like I said, this MCU came to fruition for the Avengers, and all of our favorite characters, they've experienced loss and triumph, good times, bad, but they were not prepared for the events of Infinity War, which preceded this film. Obviously, Captain Marvel and Ant-Man and the Wasp were in between, but in this direct sequel, Avengers Endgame, the Russo brothers, they give us a really good look, a really sobering picture of the fallout from the dusting. So I don't want to give too much of the plot away, but basically the Avengers, it shows how pretty much the original Avengers, how they come together to kind of deal with the fallout. And there is a time jump that is, now this is not a spoiler, you find this out really early on in the film. There's a time jump. There's a 5 years later where they're all just trying to live their lives in this new broken world. They've pretty much given up hope. But then Ant-Man, he emerges from the quantum realm, and he has this idea of how to collect the Infinity Stones, as they're called. In the comic books, they're called Infinity Gems. But of course, as we know, in the MCU, they're called Infinity Stones. And it's from there, the plot just goes crazy, and it's in a good way. Now, this was a bold move because after the events of the previous film, no one knew where Marvel Studios was taking this. I mean, we had no idea. There were so many rumors, so much gossip about it. Reddit was filled. There was a description of a fake trailer that leaked, and that a Redditor posted, and it got so big that comic book resources, Comic Books Now, Comic Books Online, The Nerdist, and the New Rockstars, all of these outlets were actually talking about it. And It was a pretty big deal, but everyone kind of knew that one was fake news when the title was revealed to be Avengers Annihilation on this supposed trailer description. But of course, we know the movie is now Endgame. And the Russo brothers, they pulled it off. Marvel Studios, they pulled it off. It is one of the greatest triumphs, not just for the MCU, but in my humble opinion, for cinematic history. It is stunning, inspiring, amazing, spectacular, and truly great. I know people like to throw around the word great, and we have like kind of the film fascists who are like, don't use great. Great is only for The Godfather and Lawrence of Arabia, which Lawrence of Arabia is a terrible movie, by the way. But no, this is a truly great film. And I have exactly one gripe about it, just one. The first 20 minutes of the film felt like its own short film. Because it goes directly from Infinity War to what's going on. And now, please note that I'm not saying it's bad or it was unnecessary or it was just a filler. It just felt separated from the rest of the plot. But it was a necessary setup for the preceding events. But I still feel like it was a little bit disconnected to the cohesiveness of the film. Like it was a part one, or I should say a part two, and then Endgame is part three of the series. Now, I know a lot of people throw around some Brie Larson hate. She was okay in this film. It's kind of my thing. She does not do humor. I don't get it. She just isn't good at humor, and that was clear in Captain Marvel as well. She just doesn't get it. And but I will say, besides her, all the other performances, including just cameos, were amazing, and I want to give a special shout out to Robert Downey Jr. He was the very first one to step into the role of an Avenger, and even the films that were not good, he shined. He was always the guiding light of the franchise, and in this movie, he proves just how talented he truly is. I know one thing I want to clear up is a lot of, after Captain Marvel, because now, this is a spoiler for Captain Marvel, but that movie's been out for a month, so if you haven't seen it, that's your fault, not mine. But there was a lot of people old school fans were kind of mad because at the end of the movie, you find out that Nick Fury named the Avengers Initiative after Carol Danvers' plane that crashed. And just to be clear, people are like, oh, are you saying Captain America is not the first Avenger? I kind of had a problem with that, but in this film, they make it 1,000% clear that Captain America was the first Avenger. So I just wanted to say that they did solidify that. They took care of that in this film. Now, I want to say, be prepared. Avengers Endgame is not for the faint of heart. It pulls you into every moment, and you feel every hurt that the characters go through. Likewise, you feel every triumph, no matter how small it is. There were so many times in the theater when every audience member, including me, wanted to stand up and cheer. Like the first Avengers movie, it is a modern classic. Yes, is that good. Now, on my blog, I have... whenever I do a movie review, I always do my favorite quote from the film. But this one had so many great lines, I had to narrow it. I did 3. So favorite quote number 1, part of the journey is the end, which that's been the tagline since the first trailer was released. And then my second favorite is you can rest now. I'm not going to give you any context to that. You're on your own. And part 3, Avengers Assemble. That's all I'm going to say about Avengers Endgame. Go check it out. You won't be disappointed. It is a good way to close the franchise. Now I want to talk about something different. Now, for those of you who are following Heroes in Crisis, which is a DC Comics event that a few people thought it was going to be a what's the word I'm looking for? A few people thought it was going to be like another reboot, because typically when DC Comics does a reboot, they label Crisis. So you had Crisis on Infinite Earths, you had Infinite Crisis, then you had Final Crisis. So, but DC Comics has made it clear that that's not the case. It just was an unfortunate and, very, in my humble opinion, very lazy title, knowing that people would have that reaction. So Tom King is the writer for it, and they've had numerous tie-ins. In fact, I reviewed a tie-in on my blog that that was part of Batman, the Batman title, where Batman teams up with the Flash and whatnot. Now, I want to talk about this because there, like I said, there is a spoiler here, but get over it. I don't care. DC Comics, like Marvel, has decided that they know better than the fans, and in some cases that's true. But here's the thing: when when the New 52 relaunch happened, DC Comics decided that they wanted to get rid of the classic Wally West, and they replaced him with an African-American character. Now, I have a very visceral reaction when they do that. Not because I'm a racist. I'm not. I'm totally not. I'm not, Vox Day or any racist like that. But my problem is the replacement. Because I feel that African-American characters can stand on their own two legs. You don't need to replace a white character, an Asian character, or any character with another race, because to me that is racist. When you say, "Oh, this character isn't good enough to stand on his own two legs, so I'm just gonna paste him onto an old character because I don't think that he'll sell well on his own." That is a racist mentality. I mean, just think. Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, all of these early comic book writers, right? They create the Black Panther. They create the Blue Marvel. Although I think the Blue Marvel is more modern, but Black Lightning and Falcon, and all of these amazing African American heroes. War Machine, and DC Comics and Marvel decide, oh, well, you know what? We can't do that anymore. So we're going to just paste on a new race onto these older characters, and because diversity. And then when the fans reacted bad, they said, well, you're a racist. And so so they did that with Wally West. They replaced him with another character named Wallace West, Wally for short, and he became the new Kid Flash for a while. And because I believe Bart returned to being Impulse. I'm not really up on my Flash mythology, so let me know in the comments below. So here's my thing: when they did that, the fans reacted incredibly with incredible anger. Rightly so, I might add. Rightly so, because he just vanishes from existence. And they didn't just do that in the New 52 with Wally West. They actually pretended that Donna Troy didn't exist, and the fans didn't like that. So they kind of etched her in. Stephanie Brown, Cassandra Cain, all of these really popular side characters, I guess you could call them B-team characters, they just all kind of disappeared. But Wally West was the biggest name because they didn't eliminate Dick Grayson, obviously. So Wally West, of those kind of second-gen superheroes, they just kind of disappeared. So Wally was one of those. And what happened was, because the fans' reaction was so bad, that when they did the Rebirth, they thought, oh man, we've got to fix this. We got to do this. So what they did was, because of fan demand, they made it where Wallace is a new character, which was smart, and he is Wally West's nephew. And nothing's wrong with that. That is perfect. And they made it where Wally West was trapped in this time loop, and he was able to escape in, and he kept visiting other Justice Leaguers to try to get them to recognize him. But then he finally found Barry Allen, who was Flash, and but Barry didn't recognize him at first. But then Wallace goes, "It's me, Barry, it's me." And so when Barry doesn't recognize him, he decides, okay, I'm just going to let the time loop consume me. I'm just going to merge into the Speed Force, and I'll never be seen again. But then Barry all of a sudden does remember him and grabs him and pulls him out. And so that's how Wally came back in the DC universe. So, but they still kept, and so he became part of the DC Rebirth Titans, which is the first-gen Titans. So it's got Nightwing, Donna Troy is back, it's got Wally West. And they kind of mimicked Marvel, where Wally West was kind of known as a Flash. So they did this thing where instead of giving Miles Morales a new codename when he transitioned into the mainstream Marvel, he's just known as kind of Spider-Man 2 or whatever. which the animated series cleared this up and gave Miles Morales a new code name. I don't know why they couldn't do that in Marvel, or just give him the Steel Spider identity. No one cares about that. Or Spider X, a former villain that no one's heard of in years. They could have given Miles Morales a new name like that. But no, they can't do that because they're stubborn and mean. So then DC Comics, with everything, they decided to do something similar with Wally West and Wallace West. So then comes Heroes in Crisis. And he basically what happens is Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman, they create like this safe space. I don't know why superheroes need safe spaces. College students certainly don't need them. They can grow up and man up or woman up or whatever, instead of being little sissies. So when the safe space thing kind of became controversial, I noticed that now they started to refer it as a place of rest. It was a place of rest for the superheroes who come back from strenuous missions. And there's an incident where a bunch of superheroes in Sanctuary get killed, and they don't really know how, because Batman had all of these alarm systems set in, and Wally is among the dead, and Booster Gold and Harley Quinn are two prime suspects. And I don't really know the context of that, but some of the comic book is from their perspective. So fast forward, and I'm kind of like, and I remember when they revealed that he was dead, when they revealed that Wally West was dead, the fans had like an instant backlash. Like, you just brought him back, why are you killing him off again? And they killed off like a few other useless characters as well. But most of them were useless characters. But of course, Wally West, you got to make sure that he's dead, because we know better than the fans. And then, so it's a 9-part series. Issue 8 just came out, and I was actually going to wait to review it until the graphic novel was out. But then the spoiler dropped, and I'm not mad about the spoiler. I'm actually really happy, because now I'm not going to buy it. They're not going to get a dime of my money from Heroes in Crisis based on this. I want to make sure that the graphic novel sells really poorly. So they, you find out Wally West killed everyone. Yep, you heard it here. Wally West had all this pent-up energy from the Speed Force, and his energy spiked, and all the other superheroes ran out to help him who were in Sanctuary, and his energy explodes, killing himself and everyone. DC Comics, what is wrong with you? This was clearly a big slap in the face to the fans. Yes, I just slapped myself to make that sound effect. What were you thinking? Did you really think fans would be okay with this? This is a disgrace, and I'm really disappointed in Tom King, because Tom King, he had started out with such a great run with Batman, and then when he got into this whole nightmare stuff, it started, and the wedding was a huge disappointment, and now this ridiculous ending to a classic character that everyone loves. I don't know what's wrong with you. Why does DC Comics suddenly hate Wally West? Where they're killing him off to bring him back, to kill him off and make it where he killed other superheroes off. What is this? It's clearly a hatred. But here's what it is. It's not a hatred as they hate the character. It's that they're angry that the fans didn't like their left-wing diversity rewrite. So they decide, you know what? Screw the fans. We're going to go toe-to-toe with them because we know better, because we're DC Comics. No. Right now, before, in the Golden Age and even the Silver Age of comics, comic books could get their money not just from fanboys, but people, because people actually did read, like, say, Batman to know what the mystery was and whatnot, and same with Superman, because Superman was a product of the Great Depression. Same with Captain America. They wanted to read Captain America because he was such a great American hero at a really bad time in the United States. So people wanted to read these issues. Well, now comic books are more reliant on their fanboys, but more and more, because of these stupid diversity hires, they're hiring terrible comic book writers, mediocre comic book writers who are from this generation of whiny SJWs who their parents never told them no. And so DC Comics is reacting like an SJW. They're running to their safe space and they're saying, screw you fans, we don't care that we get all of our income from you. And I really think that for DC comic fans, we need to react in the same way that the fans did with Marvel, because when Marvel went SJW and they replaced Tony Stark with Riri Williams, who no one cared about, no one had heard of, when they replaced Spider-Man early on with Miles Morales, when they now Miles Morales has kind of become a mainstream character and he's cool. They lessened it when Ta-Nehisi Coates was. When they decided to give him Black Panther and the Crew, which was an epic failure, and now and even though he failed, they're giving him Captain America. They just don't want to admit that they're hiring subpar writers to write this crap, and so now Wally West is a victim of this because they're saying, "Hey, we know better than the fans. We can do it better." Obviously, they can't, and guys. I've been kind of a supporter of Comicsgate. I just read Jawbreaker's Lost Souls. I have a comic book review of it up today, in fact. And it just goes to show you how a well-written comic book can come together, even if you're not familiar with characters. Like, I'll be honest, I didn't read Jawbreakers when it came out in the 90s. I didn't know what it was about. But I turned to a writer like Richard Meyer, an artist like John Malin, and Ethan Van Sciver, because I just wanted to read something that I knew I would like as a fan. And I did. Jawbreakers Lost Souls. It's incredible, and we need to get on these Indiegogo campaigns and whatnot and support these comic book writers because they are giving us good content, and we need to show DC Comics, we need to show Marvel and Image and IDW and Dark Horse that we don't want to take any more of this crap. And I feel so bad for Chuck Dixon. He did make a mistake. Chuck Dixon illustrated a comic book for Vox Day. Vox Day is a clearly disturbed, anti-Semite, racist, and Chuck Dixon shouldn't have drawn the comic book for him. But you know what? Chuck Dixon, he's a really good, talented writer. He was amazing with Batman, but he's been blacklisted from DC and Marvel just because he's a Republican, and that is not right. I remember days when comic books and sports, I know this because I'm a millennial, but I'm kind of an early millennial. I'm more Generation Y than millennial, and I remember when when you could go and read, and it might have like liberal themes or even a little bit of conservative themes, but you could pick it up and sometimes not even know what the politics of the writer and the artist were. And I think comic books need, especially, to get back to that if it's going to survive. So they don't hate Wally West in the sense that they hate the character. They hate how the fans reacted to them killing him, or to rewriting him for the New 52, and now they're punishing the fans. And I think that's going to hurt their bottom line. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But it's pretty messed up. All right, everyone, that's all the time I have for today. Thank you so much for listening in. You'll catch me on You Got It with host WarriorWoman91 later this week. I'm very excited to be rejoining her. I think I'm her first returning guest, so I'm pretty excited about that. Be sure to pick up your copy of my fantasy novel, The Seven Royals. All good things. You won't be disappointed. It's about a dragon prince named Jasher, who is a human. Dragon Prince is a title. And he gets put into stasis for 10 years. And because his kingdoms, he's part of an alliance of 7 kingdoms, and all 7 of them get taken over by an evil wizard named Fabius Thorn, and an emperor named Midas, who, yes, can turn people into gold. And so then he goes and he finds the other 6 who have been sent out. Now, they were just kids. He was the oldest when he went to stasis. The other 6 were kids. So now they're all in their late teens, and he has to gather them together so they can return to their land to restore it. So you've got the Sleeping Beauty, Talia Rosebriar. You've got the Brave Woodsman, James. You've got the Sea Baron, swashbuckling hero, and Connor. You've got the Beauty and Belle. You've got the Animal Whisperer and Rapunzel, and you've got Prince Charming and Hansel from Hansel and Gretel and Philip. And it's just an amazing story that if I don't mind saying myself, and you definitely need to check it out. You can get it on Barnes and Noble or on Amazon, so definitely pick up your copy. And as for the rest, you can follow me on Twitter at RealJakeberry. Instagram is RealJakeberry. Facebook is Author Jakeberry, and of course, check out my blog for movie reviews, comic book news, entertainment news, all kinds of great stuff. That's jacoberry.blog. JACOBAIREY.blog. And I'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.